a wonderful journey, and I hope we sort of get to learn something new from this session. Saloni, I please feel free to introduce yourself, and the floor is all yours from here.
Thanks for the introduction. You all see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Can you tell me what you see?
I see your presentation, right?
So hi everyone, I am Saloni. Take you all on a journey where I'm going to show you how you can draw inspiration from sounds. I work as an experience designer at Frog, which is based in Oslo. I worked in Frog Bangalore for about 4 years, and then I needed a little bit of change, so I decided to come to Oslo. By the night, I am also an illustrator, so I love to draw stuff, just to get my thoughts out. And on weekends, I play a little bit of music now and then. Some of the things that inspire me are, of course, like being around the nature. And that was one of the reasons I moved to Oslo, because I wanted to be closer to the nature. And mountains, I think those are really essential for me to get me inspiration. I'm very fond of music, so music is almost like I'm always inspired by the world of space, and I do a little bit of yoga to keep sane. Before I talk more about my process or show you some examples, let's have a small experience together. Close your eyes and just hear the music and try to visualize. Give me a heads up if you're able to hear the sound based on what you visualized in your mind while you were hearing the music. Just make a simple sketch. Don't worry about how your sketch is going to look like, because we are not going to show it to each other. It's just for yourself. Even if it's some crooked lines or some weird shaped circles, it's totally fine. I will put like a timer of 1 minute, and I hope all of you have like some pens or pencils around. It doesn't have to be shown to anybody, so you shouldn't care so much about the medium. So I'm going to start the timer now. The time is coming to an end. And yeah, you may stop now. This is my process. I just close my eyes, listen to the music. I feel it. And how could it work? It could be triggered by sound or music. It could be driven by a theme or an environment, and it is manifested in art or design. So this is the process that it works for me, but I think it can pretty much work for anyone. I'm gonna talk a little bit about my journey, how using music or sound as an inspiration to draw really started back in childhood, when I didn't have the money to buy CDs. I would kind of burn the CDs and also draw album covers for it. This sort of process started way back in school. And I was on this journey that I made a lot of covers, fake album covers. When I moved to college, some friends asked me if I can make an album cover for them. So I made some for local bands through word of mouth and other platforms. Even international bands reached out. Over the time, I think I made 60 album covers to date, but maybe the list is even more if I count the unreleased albums. The first example I'm going to show is a single cover for the band called Ryatsu. It's ambient music, but it has speech vocals on top. The speech vocals were from the movie Great Dictator. So I made some really rough sketches which looked like this. It was very crude and rough, And these were like two directions like the artist really liked. But eventually it became like a combination of the two. This was the form it took. It has like the silhouette of a soldier, but it also shows like the control more in like monotony. So this is how it ultimately ended up looking. So it's a combination of simple sketch, simple coloring. This is like one way of visualizing sound into a visual. But another thing that I sometimes like experiment a lot with is like audio visualizers. So another time, like I was on a call with the customer support, and they put me on a really long. I was trying to order like some installation, and I had this idea, what if I just record the sound and try to sample it and make music out of it. I turned a boring phone call into a fun thing. And then I just made like a simple graphic, which really doesn't mean anything, but it's still fun. I combined the medium, took that phone recording, like which was the automated call, and they made it into a track and just added this 2-frame animation to make it look like complete, and I will just play it out. That was another example of an audio visualizer. Was inspired by environment. So I had this beehive in my balcony in Bangalore, and I found this beehive like super duper interesting because it's just such an amazing form of community and structure. I often use like combination from like nature and try to like fuse it with the drawing. So this is like how the drawing looked like. And then I try to digitize and make a more cleaned up version. And then I sampled like the buzzing bee sound and added some ambient music. And then I combined with some animation. Those were like audio visualizers and some album cover. Sound has also inspired me to like make interfaces or like apps so that it's not just limited to drawing stuff, but also designing stuff. So this was a project I did with a friend. It's called Sound of Oslo, but now we're thinking of expanding it to worldwide because, of course, it makes sense to have like a library of sounds which can be accessed by everyone and also like contribute. So whenever like I went on a hike in Oslo, like I found so many interesting sounds that I could use as like ASMR music for working. I made this library, which would have like two views, show the view like where it is in Oslo, like where it's been captured from, but also show you like the location. This was more like an interface project that I did using sound as an inspiration. Currently, we've kind of put it on hold because now we want to change the domain name to something more like worldwide. What you can do with sound is like pretty endless, and you can create different interfaces, designs, and yeah, whatnot. My mantra is you can find the inspiration everywhere, and like just making use of your senses. Like, of course, like I talked mainly about sound, but even using like smell or other senses, it's possible to like make stuff as art form or as interfaces. That was about it. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask, feel free.
I have two, three questions. When was it that you actually sort of got into the process of, sampling and getting your hands dirty with actual audio stuff? I started off my music journey just like you, burning music CDs, but I got
Mm.
introduced to making the concept of being able to make music quite later on. How is it that you discovered or you stumbled on this journey which was sampling music, collecting samples, and giving its own visual and audio twist in your format?
That's a super interesting question. I think for me, it started pretty late, like when it happened like much later. It was also the effect of me surrounding myself with a bunch of like musicians, maybe some influence from that, that it's really possible to create music, on their own. And also just like experimenting on GarageBand, like which is such a basic tool to mix sounds. So just like getting started from there, it just lets you easily uh, play around with sounds and samples. That's how I dabbled into it, like just by experimenting and not really having fixed goal in mind, like where I'm gonna go with there on, mainly because of interest uh, in knowing how it works, but also like experimentation, which I feel is an underrated area because people don't experiment because they get often get scared by the fact, oh, you have to learn so much, But I think if you're having fun and experimenting, then it's so much more fun to learn something.
Interesting. Another question on what you just said of experimentation. From my point of view, the fear of experimentation also sort of stems from the fear of failure or having that perfectionist mindset that it has to sound the way I hear it in my brain. How do you navigate those swings in inspiration and creative blocks? Any tips which we could sort of use in our process, which has helped you out so far?
I started to read the questions on the chat, so if you can
Yeah,
ask me.
sure. Yeah, sure. So my question was that there are days, for us creators that we don't have the most
Hmm.
amount of inspiration,
Yeah.
and especially when you are starting off with something. I remember when I started off with FL Studio for the first time, I would have this idea in my head, and I would want it to sound perfectly the way I put it out on FL Studio. But obviously, with the process of it having a learning curve, you sort of tend to realize very early on that it's very difficult to sort of reach that skill
Hmm.
set. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of effort. But how do you sort of keep pushing yourself even on days where you don't feel very motivated, you don't have a lot of ideas? How do you sort of push yourself to create something to build that habit? And are there any tips which have helped you out so far, which
Hmm.
you sort of still use in your own process, which we may take inspiration from and learn a thing or two?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very valid question because I often get in those sort of phases where I'm not being creative or I've just kind of felt that, okay, it's not working. So something which really helps is just picking it up again, having sort of some sort of discipline, which by force you do it, even if you don't succeed. So even if you make like a crap music or a crap drawing, it doesn't matter as long as you keep it going. And you need to kind of force yourself to do it sometimes. If you're not feeling those creative juices flowing, you still need to do it. And I think being in nature has really worked for me very well. Like, if I've not been creative, I've been just like walking in the forest or going for a walk. It sometimes helps, like being in a diffused environment, doing totally something else and then coming back to it. Then your mind works better. when you do like diffuse thinking. So I think those two, like either discipline or like doing completely something else. Like if you like going to the gym, just doing that or playing a game of sport and then coming back to it will really help.
That does make sense. I've at least noticed at least a small walk helping me out sometimes, getting out of the monotonous sort of thought spiral of, oh, I'm not able to create something, I need to come up with something. So yeah, it definitely sort of resonates with me. If you have any more questions, please put them in the chat. I don't see any so far. I think if there's nothing else, we can call it the end for now. Thank you so much for sharing your process and your journey. So
thank you guys too. I think it's quite a amazing platform to know that it exists. Like just a bunch of like passionate designers or non-designers, like keeping the momentum flowing. I think that's great. So yeah, I want to wish all of you, like I hope it grows more globally as well. Like not just limited to like Indian audience, with your interest areas really kind of shows you the way that how it can be much more. So yeah, experimentation is something that I really wish that everyone should do more.
we get into that zone of experimentation a lot more easier. But yeah, this was a great session. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Thank you so much for even the folks on the call to sort of join in. Much
Yeah.
appreciated. Yeah, I think we will be dropping the link for the Discord server in the chat. So if people who are interested, they can sort of take the invite and join the community from there. But yeah, thank you so much, and have a good rest of the evening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye bye.